And this is the breaking news. This is from Jeff Passan at ESPN. Manny Machado and the Padres finalizing an 11-year, $350 million contract. Machado helped turn around the franchise. Passan goes on and on. We can add on from there. Brian Kenny, Ruben Amaro Jr. here, live with you. Good morning. Busy morning. Yeah. Ruben, how about that? We're getting ready for the Padres in spring training camp later, a spring training sprint. Padres and Pirates are our teams of emphasis today. For the next half hour, though, this breaking news, Manny Machado, one of the Padres aircraft carriers. They've got several, Ruben, but only days ago, Machado said, hey, look, I'm going to opt out after next year. Peter Seidler, owner of the Padres, said, hey, he's a top priority, but still, within days, they get this done.
Yeah, Peter Seidler's not messing around. Neither is A.J. Preller. Pretty fascinating that they move so quickly. And really, in my mind, a brilliant move by Machado. He basically told them, and I think it worked for both sides, that he said, hey, I'm going to opt out. This kind of prompted things. I'm not sure if there was a discussion going on before this, but it kind of prompted things and made things happen. And you got to give Machado and the Padres, you got to give them a lot of love for getting this done.
I want to just, the ability to make deals and finalize deals has been a hallmark of the Padres with A.J. Preller, Peter Seidler the last couple of years. Tatis with the extension. Xander Bogaerts brought in. Take a look at, again, these are aircraft carriers now. We're talking over $300 million, 11 years for Machado now, and that includes this year, which he was contractually obligated to the Padres. Tatis got a 14-year extension. He's a question of his own. Xander Bogaerts just comes over, 11 years, $280. They redid the deals for Yu Darvish, and Joe Musgrove also got a new deal last year. But at the top, that's remarkable. Essentially, Ruben, we've been kicking around the numbers here. Essentially, he was going to be a Padre, Machado was this year, anyway. If he had opted out and then hit the market, essentially what the new deal would be, not just the 11, they already owed him 5 for $150. So the increase was 5 years, $170 million, age 36 through age 40. What do you think of that deal? Because that's like essentially, it's like, okay, now here's the back end of that deal, 5 for $170 on top of what the old deal was.
Yeah, and I think that clearly the fact that the DH exists now, I think this allows for all these deals to happen. I mean, you're talking about guys who are probably not going to be as effective players in their latter years. Now, this is one of the top 10 players in all of baseball. I love the fact that they wanted to lock him up. It's great that Peter Seidler has the wherewithal and the money to be able to do it. For me, it's one of those situations where at some point, you're going to have to move these guys, perhaps, and they have the athleticism with Bogaerts and Machado and others. They have the athleticism to move to the other side of the field or to not, have as demanding a situation as far as their defense is concerned. But the DH has changed so many things in my mind, and that's why you're seeing these long-term deals, because they feel like, hey, these guys can still be productive offensively, and it's all the DH culprit as far as I'm concerned.
They had options in that Ha-Seong Kim plays an outstanding defensive shortstop, but they move him over to second base. Basic, essential baseball theory is if you don't want to have a guy sign through his age 40 season. They're going to have a 40-year-old version of Machado and Bogaerts. However, at least if you're starting at shortstop and third base, on that end of the defensive spectrum, you can move over, eventually get to first base, eventually get to DH, and hopefully that's what he's doing when he's 40 years old. Let's go to Mark Feinsand right now, get a little more on this. Mark, give me your overall thoughts on the deal. This happened very quickly. We were wondering, hey, now all these foundation pieces for the Padres could come apart. Now they solidify that.
Yeah, no question. When you look at the fact that the Padres now have Machado, Tatis, and Bogaerts signed at least through 2033, you've got the core of this team going forward. You'd have to think this means that Juan Soto's time in San Diego is a 2-year window here, which means there's a 2-year window for this lineup to just be unbelievable with him added to those other three. There was incentive on both sides for Machado and the Padres to continue this relationship. The Padres knew Machado was serious about opting out. That was going to happen at the end of the year if there was not an extension. All the talk about Manny not wanting to negotiate after the start of spring training, that's all part of negotiations. I think the Padres knew that if they brought a deal to him that made sense for both sides, that was going to, give him what he wanted, it was there for the taking. So, Peter Seidler made it very clear that bringing back Machado, or just keeping him in a Padres uniform, was the number one priority, and he backed it up with a 5-year, $170 million extension.
Yeah, Mark, again, everyone gets very excited when these deals are made because the guy right now, he's 30. He's got age 30 season coming up. They're going to be paying him 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. We know what it's not just the cost, it's the opportunity cost of having an aging player on your roster. What are the thoughts do you think are going to be throughout baseball, given that, these long-term deals are usually something you look to avoid? As excited as we are, right, and as good as this player is, usually these long-term deals are something to avoid.
For several years, teams did avoid them. And we saw, after the group of like Joey Votto, Pujols, Robinson Cano signed their 10-year deals, took them into their late 30s or even early 40s, those didn't work out so well on the back end for some of them. So you saw teams shy away from them. But then in the last year or two, you've seen teams jump back into them. Aaron Judge signed to age 40. Bogart's into his 40s. Trey Turner signed an 11-year deal. All these big, long deals this offseason. It seems like teams are not as afraid. And the universal DH, I would have to imagine, plays into that to some extent. Machado is a very athletic guy. Obviously, third base has been phenomenal for him since he moved over. And the idea, I guess, is he'll be able to play there into his late 30s. And if they have to move him to DH, so be it. You can move Bogarts to third, to first. You've got Tatis now as a full-time outfielder. By the time these guys are ready to potentially move to first or DH, Tatis is going to be there at, 29 years old or 30 years old. And they could say, hey, Fernando, it's time to move back to shortstop. So they do have some options. But I think right now teams are looking at the window to win. And if it means you have to suffer on the back end a little bit, so be it. But you've also seen some guys perform well into their late 30s. So I think the fact that there is a DH certainly helps that out.
I wanted to point out to you, as you're saying, Ruben was saying, it's like, there's only one DH, right? Like they can't all go play. Hey, they're all go playing DH. They can't do that. But it brings to mind.
Well, there's first base also. For a guy on the left side of the infield,
right? True.
First base is usually a late career heaven.
It brings up Juan Soto, though. Now, so there's Soto, he is not a defender, right? He's not much of a base runner, but he could be the number one hitter in the game. I'm just to float this. If you're thinking, this probably means they can't keep Soto, I don't know. Right? They're the Padres, right? I don't know. I didn't think this could get done so quickly. It just did. What do you think of them being, again, going against the grain, being a little outlandish and saying, no, we are going to get another aircraft carrier long term?
Well, it's hard for me to imagine, given that Soto is represented by Scott Boras, and they've got these ideas that he's going to be, there was the thought he was going to be the first $500 million player, although Shohei Ohtani will likely exceed that a year earlier. The idea that Boras is going to sign Soto to an extension before getting to free agency seems like a stretch. Soto is one of those guys you've looked at and said he is going to be a free agent at some point at the end of the 2024 season. So I think that's probably where that's headed. But the Padres do have this 2-year window with him right now. And I think that's, part of their plan is this is the time for them to really capitalize on having this group together. Like you said, though, it's the Padres. You just never know when you've got a financial behemoth like San Diego, they could go out and do anything. At this point, there's almost nothing that the Padres could do that would really make you go, wow, because they've already done it.
Right.
They've already wowed us all.
That would be the next wow.
And it started with Eric Hosmer. I mean, you remember when Eric Hosmer signed his $150 million, $144 million contract with the Padres, it was like, well, that's just trying to make it look like they're, serious about contending. And then, a year later they signed Machado and everybody was like, wow. And then they signed Tatis to that extension and it was like, wow. So at this point, even Machado's extension is not really a wow, other than that they got it done this quickly, avoided the opt-out and locked him in till 2033. But really, the way that they've operated the last few years, there's nothing they could do that would really shock me at this point.
Right. That's including Soto. And just to point out, as you bring up the Hosmer deal, they got out of that deal, right? So many of these deals, you actually never finish. Now, this one, maybe they will. Mark, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Mark.
Thanks, BK.
All right. I didn't want to just shut him down. Yeah, just saying, you bring up Hosmer, guess what? They got out of that deal, although that seemed premature too. They also had de-escalating contracts on Hosmer. This will not be. This is going to be essentially, $34 million a year for Machado as he ages.
So one of the big factors I think here is we cannot forget that we're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers that they're in the division with. You talk about aircraft carriers. This is a club that they're trying to compete and move past. And so I see the aggressiveness and why they're doing it. I mean, the LA Dodgers, that's who they've been for the last 10 years. They've been spending and being really aggressive. Obviously, they've done a nice job as far as, being able to bring, young talent into their system, but they're also the big spenders. I mean, they're trying to beat up on a team that's been fantastic for a long, long time. And Peter Seidler and A.J. Preller, they're doing what they can. And I got to believe that they are going to make the effort. I know A.J. Preller, and once he locks down on a player, and he really loves a player, and I'm sure he does with Soto, I would not be surprised if he's the next guy, the next chip to fall.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you can't rule it out. Look, the Mets and the Padres are kind of like breaking some of the recent rules, meaning it's like, no, we can go out. We'll pay a luxury tax. We'll keep going out there. Yeah. And to chase the Dodgers, who won 111 games last year. They're doing everything right.
Of course.
This year, maybe, I don't know. They're kind of, they're not stuck in a gear, but they didn't slap it into another gear this year. For like the first time in a while, the Dodgers, you didn't say, darn, the Dodgers are gone. Wait, the Dodgers are kind of there that the Padres are looking at.
Yeah, I thought that they would sort of jump into that shortstop mix in some way, shape, or another, and they did not do that. And they knew they would have to. I know they've got a ton of commitments as it stands, but it was a little surprising that they weren't as aggressive as they typically are, especially with what's going on there just south of them.